Right. Ashfaq, would you like to kick us off?
Okay, thanks, Unga. Good morning, everybody. Hi, Chris.
Morning, Oscar.
Yeah, Chris, a difficult night for the guys. After how they improved against the Dragons and certainly against Exeter as well. I don't think many Bulls fans would have expected that kind of performance last night. A tough week with the travel as well, and we saw the snow and everything. But yeah, what do you put down to just that seem to have that lack of physicality and that sting in the defense as well?
Yeah, Ashfaq, obviously for us, or for many of the boys, it's the first encounter in France. So I think they come across a French side that at home is obviously completely different. Obviously you can use the conditions and obviously the travel as excuse, but for us, it was extremely cold. The reality is that the condition wasn't that bad in the end. Obviously very cold. There was some snow that came down, but if we look at put that aside, I still think we consider too much penalties that put us under pressure. And like you said, that sometimes down to little technical areas we need to improve as a team. I think the first half was 11 penalties and the second half was 5. We came obviously very well back in the second half. Take my hat off to the guys, but in the beginning, obviously we put ourselves under immense pressure. That was the end showed on the scoreboard.
We spoke about the selection before the game, and you see this part of rotation, particularly the front row. The scrum has been going really well the last 2 games. I know it's difficult to say now after the game that perhaps you shouldn't have made those changes, but yeah, what do you think happened in the scrums?
I know that you need to ask Werner. But the reality is, like I said yesterday, rotation is obviously necessary for us. One for player welfare, and secondly, obviously you need to grow your group. The only way you can grow them, obviously, is in games like this. And the argument could be, listen, we want to play our best team against teams like Lyon, but then you're going to do that basically every week, because there's not many weak sides in these competitions. So, yeah, it's a tough one. It's one that obviously we need to learn from, and as a group and as individuals. But we all know they've got a very heavy pack. Obviously, extremely good backs. So for us, it will be, I think the way we pulled back in the second half, we were basically, with 5 minutes to go in the first half, we were 10-0 down. Obviously, we conceded early on a penalty, a try. And I thought we had a patch there where we played quite well. We couldn't convert, which is obviously an area we need to improve. And then that 5 minutes before halftime, we conceded a lot of penalties that led to that scrum and more tries. And then when we came out second half, obviously we scored first up, and then they scored right in the end. So basically it was even Stevens in the second half, and just showed us that we could manage those conditions, and we could obviously stand our ground. So the scrums, obviously, we'll have a look at it so the morning. But yeah, I thought if we look at it with perspective, there's a lot of positives, but there's one thing we need to change. Let's say it's obviously experience that will help over time. And yeah, for us, it was actually it's a disappointing experience, but also a positive one in the sense that we were there in the first half, and then obviously the second half. We had a patch like that, obviously against the Stormers in the Sharks, and only time will get us to a point where we can control those moments better.
Because I also wanted to say is we spoke about now the first half opportunities that you had, and almost like you got into the red zone, then there was a knock on or the ball's turned over. And also in the second half, after Kirtley's intercept try, you had another opportunity where you went close. I think we held the ball.
Penalty.
And then you had the tap penalty after that also with I think Marco van Staden lost it as he went over to score. So, I mean, if you had scored those 2 tries, it was a very different situation.
And it comes down to when you, I mean, it's extremely difficult to win in France. We all know that, or the Frenchies know that, everyone that comes here. And if you want to win here, then you need to be tested on 3 levels. We spoke about it. You need to be a tight team, and I thought even though we struggled discipline-wise, obviously we stuck together as a group. You need to manage a game well, and then you need to take your opportunities. And I thought we obviously didn't do that well, apart from the other stuff. But if you want to win here, you need to be brave, and you need to take those opportunities to score. So we had the opportunities, and I think just obviously the conditions, like I said, I don't think it's extremely cold, and obviously it was wet with the snow coming down. I just think we need to obviously adapt playing on a artificial pitch, especially the way you control the ball on the ground. It's much more active when you play such, so sometimes it fumbles, which then causes a half a second of delay, which then causes your rhythm, your animation around the corner that's being out. But we had the opportunities. That's a positive. How are we going to convert that? That's the one we need to know. If you want to win here in France, you need to nail them every time to apply pressure. That's it, plain and simple.
Thanks, Ashfaq. Any other questions? Yes, Dylan.
Thanks, Lunga. Hi, Chris. Thanks for taking a bit of time to chat. Just on your, you made quite a few unforced errors in this game away from penalties. It looked like there were quite a lot of unforced errors especially compared to how many errors Lyon were making. How do you go about fixing that, especially when you're playing away from home?
Yeah, Dylan, obviously that's a correct assumption. So when we played Glasgow, we had the same experience, like I said just now with Ashfaq. I think when you play an artificial pitch, obviously the pitch is much more reactive, but also in terms of ball control. So you'd see a lot of those errors were around the ruck area. In terms of when we obviously place the ball, it's not as stable when you play in grass. That's the one thing. Secondly, obviously it's pressure. When you make unforced errors in terms of passing, that is normally one or two things. So either your decision making, or like I said, some sort of delay, which they attacked our ruck or breakdown, causes you to, when you obviously run onto the ball, is a little bit of delay that you're not used to, then obviously you're not in perfect positions that cause those errors. It's every time, I mean, I don't think we're the only team. I think the South African teams in general has the same experience. Again, something we need to find a solution to when you come over and you have a short time to train and to adapt. But we all know unfortunately it comes from pressure, decision making, and like I said, conditions.
And then just to follow up, if I can, you mentioned that little patch, good patch that you had after falling 10-0 down, but how much did sort of falling 10-0 down early on in that game, how much did that sort of impact your approach? The fact that you, from early on, you sort of had to play catch-up rugby, as it were.
No, I mean, anytime you fall behind, especially away from home, it has an influence. I think, like I said, we started off quite well, kicked off. I think we got the line out, and then obviously we missed that line out. From there, it became a kicking game. Someone didn't retrieve 10 yards, and then from there, they got that penalty that got them the initial try. So after that first probably 35 minutes, we realized the conditions is obviously it's not ideal, but the pitch actually were quite well to play with. And then we said, listen, we need to go. The reality is, before the game, everyone knew that first 10 minutes the French is obviously through the roof in terms of energy and passion. So you need to obviously manage that pressure that's going to come in the first 10. And after conceding that try, it just shows us, listen, we need to play catch up. I think we were a little bit in our shell for a while, and then I think it's around about 20th minute till I think 35. We played quite well. We put them under enough pressure. It's just a conversion, obviously, that cost us. And then the discipline after that. And I don't think it's a question of ill discipline. It's just a question of managing certain aspects of our game that obviously conceded those penalties.
And lastly from me, maybe you can just touch on the atmosphere that was there at the stadium. It seemed sort of quite packed and quite loud over there. You obviously had a closer look at it than we did back here in South Africa. What was it like over there?
Well, the one thing I can tell you, the guys had an unbelievable time here in terms of obviously just experiencing France, and then the crowd. We all knew if you play the French, there's three things that's going to be in play, and it's basically the energy and the passion of the French team, and then obviously the atmosphere, the intimidation, and the noise of the crowd. And it was like that last night. It was actually a nice atmosphere to play in. The guys really enjoyed it. I must say, the French obviously supports the teams very well in terms of attendance. So yeah, it was actually a great experience, and they are very knowledgeable. So obviously, if you do something well, they would obviously applaud. And yeah, it was a great experience apart from the result that we had this week in France.
Thanks, Dylan. Ashfaq?
Chris, obviously now it's on to Wales for the URC against the Scarlets. I see they've also got a hybrid pitch. I think might be a bit better than last night's pitch, but also not a national.
Sorry, Ashfaq, I lost you there for a bit.
Oh, sorry, I was talking about the Scarlets pitch next week. Also artificial, but I think it's a better service than last. It's more of a hybrid kind of thing than last night's pitch. But yeah, what do you think in terms of ball presentation you can fix this time around, and obviously the intensity in defense?
Yeah. So I think I've got the same pitch as Dragons. So it's a hybrid, but what they do is they put in that artificial net, which they push down into the ground so that the roots can also grab onto that when obviously to grow. So it's basically a grass pitch with some netting underneath. Yeah, so I mean, the pitch mustn't be an excuse. It's just we need to look after the ball a little bit better in terms of presentation. Obviously, the Scarlets has been on a good run the last 5 games. I think they only had 1 loss against Leinster, if I'm not mistaken. So for us, it's just with another challenge, and this would complete our 8-week stint where we had 6 away. So I think the guys are looking forward to this one, and then obviously a little bit of a break after that.
Just any injuries, Chris? We saw Kurtley limping off a bit there, and a couple of other guys getting blows. Michael van Staden with a bleeding. Yeah,
I think Kurtley's just got a bit of a cough. I think they will make obviously a call this morning, but I don't think it's something serious. Obviously, him and Conan would go back to the box now. And otherwise, I'm not aware of anyone apart from a little bit bump and bruises and cuts that we're all obviously good to go.
Just finally from you, Chris, obviously the Champions Cup qualification now, it's sort of out of your hands, although you should get through. I think Harlequins is the one thing, and then Gloucester, Bordeaux, that's probably the big one in terms of points difference.
That's correct. I think Gloucester plays away at Bordeaux, if I'm not mistaken. So it will come down to points difference, and obviously we will know by the end of tomorrow where we stand. I mean, anything can happen. Still believe we have a chance to qualify, but there is a mathematical opportunity for the teams to qualify and for us to be out. That's the facts. Although it's obviously highly unlikely, but it could happen. So obviously what happens will happen, and then we need to face the facts. That's the one thing I mean, those 5 minutes, probably if you look back at the last 3 weeks, it's probably the only blemish on our performance, and we mustn't lose perspective where the team is, the growth we've shown in the last 3 weeks. So we'll take out the positives and obviously use it on our journey going to Scarlets.
Thanks, Ashfaq. Carl, have you got a question, Simon? Or can we let Chris go?
Thanks, Lunga.
Cool.
The question has been answered, asked already. Thanks. Thanks,
Cool,
Lunga.
Carl.
I'm covered. Cheers,
All right,
Chris.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys. Coach,
Okay.
safe travels. We'll speak later.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.